Back in the day when Marvel stuck to their comics and cartoons, and Capcom was kicking off their arcade fighting games, few thought that they would collaborate to unite both of their key franchises. The result would become the Marvel vs. Capcom series, and it would become a worldwide success that would last for 3 decades and counting. This crossover was acclaimed by many fans and critics for its creative art, advanced mechanics, and iconic music. And on that note, we thought that we would take a look at our top 10 best Capcom vs. Marvel games to have ever been released. But of course, just before we do go into the video, if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10s, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. And with all that said, let's just get straight into it. These are our top 10 best Marvel vs. Capcom games. Number 10. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Infinite saw Capcom and Marvel universes merged together by Ultron Sigma, a fusion of Marvel's Ultron and Capcom's Sigma. Unfortunately, and while the game had some neat ideas, it did have a lot of problems. Some were minor, like going back to 2-person tags instead of 3, and others were a lot more significant, like the broken Infinitive Stone system. Then there was a lackluster story mode, the cheap-looking presentations, and the reduced roster. Its rough development was a factor in producer Yoshinori Ono's departure from Capcom, and Street Fighter VI delayed development. Number 9. Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter is essentially the same as X-Men vs. Street Fighter, but with most of the X-Men replaced with the Avengers. The Japanese version even had a strange character in Norimaru, a scrawny otaku based on a character played by a Japanese comedian. It had some huge combos, high damage attacks, and assist attacks, which included calling a tag partner to perform a special move. That and everyone got a bunch of new moves and super combos, which enhanced the overall gameplay quality, but ultimately it's just more of the same, complete with some stages and penultimate boss in Apocalypse. Number 8. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Fate of Two Worlds. After nearly a decade on ice, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 brought the Marvel vs. Capcom series back to life. The 3-on-3 tag system gameplay came back from Marvel vs. Capcom 2, only this time, they could all officially be played online. It added a fresh set of characters like Deadpool, Wesker, and Phoenix, and smoothed out the controls to make them more intuitive for new players. This move worked as over 2 million copies were shipped within the first month of its launch, but it was succeeded within months by its ultimate replacement, which likely left many of those 2 million unit buyers with a little bit of remorse. Still, considering Ultimate's additions, this was likely cheaper than buying the seasonal DLC packs. Number 7. Marvel vs. Capcom Origins. Marvel vs. Capcom Origins was a compilation of Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and Marvel Superheroes. It reached the Xbox 360 PS3 in 2012, emulating the original games, while throwing in high-definition support, graphical options, and online modes. Fun as it was, it left fans noticing what it lacked more than what it had. The game didn't have Marvel vs. Capcom 2, or Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, or any of the X-Men games, as Disney and Marvel didn't want to promote the latter because they didn't own the movie rights at the time, despite Marvel vs. Capcom and Marvel Superheroes still featuring Wolverine and co. In the end though, this game was delisted from all platforms at the end of 2014. Number 6. X-Men Children of the Atom. This series all started with one Capcom game based on the Marvel franchise, 1994's X-Men Children of the Atom. Players could pick 6 of the titular mutants, or 4 of their villains, in an arcade take on the Genosha storyline, where Magneto sets up Space Colony for mutants. There's no tag gameplay here, no assists, or anything like that. It's just a straightforward one-on-one fighter, but with bigger, bolder graphics and much faster gameplay. It still holds up today, as a dose of old-school fun for its significance. Aside from being Capcom's first Marvel game, it was also the second game ever to feature Akuma, who's just as broken as he was in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Number 5. Marvel Superheroes. Marvel Superheroes came out after X-Men Children of the Atom the following year in 1995. This time it followed the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, complete with Thanos as the final boss. Like the comics and feature movies, Iron Man, the Hulk, Spider-Man and Captain America, among others, had to try and stop him. Unlike them, they were backed up by Wolverine and Magneto, alongside Doctor Strange villains, Shuma Gorath and Blackheart. The graphics were brighter and more colourful than ever, and were paired with some of its best music in the series. The gameplay was also boosted by the Infinitive Gems, where players could steal their opponent's gems and use it for power like refilling health, extra defense, and stronger offense. Number 4. X-Men vs Street Fighter. Marvel and Capcom's first ever true crossover came in 1996 X-Men vs Street Fighter. Wolverine, Gambit, Rogue and company joined forces with Ryu, Ken, Chun-li, and the others to stop the Age of Apocalypse. The Street Fighter cast got their own powers boosted to match their Marvel's counterparts, like Ryu's Shinku Hadouken becoming a giant Kamehameha-like beam. The game kept Marvel's superheroes' jumps and aerial combos, and introduced a tag battle system, where partners could swap in and out of combat for combos or join forces to unleash combined hyper moves. And sometimes broken gameplay, combined with its vivid animation, made it a worldwide hit. Number 3. Marvel vs Capcom Clash of Superheroes. In this game, the Marvel heroes were supported by a wide variety of Capcom stars to bring the dreaded onslaught down. It maintained the tag gameplay and aerial combos from the prior games, and then threw in a bundle of unique mechanics that never made it into the sequels. Players could select a third guest character to provide backup, and they could also activate the dual combination attack, where they control both of their characters at the same time to pile on the pressure. Presentation wise though, it really lived up to its Clash of the Superheroes tagline, and gameplay wise, it had room for refinement. Number 2. Ultimate Marvel vs Capcom 3. Ultimate Marvel vs Capcom's 3 editions were originally planned as DLC for vanilla Marvel vs Capcom 3. However, due to the earthquake disrupting developments, they were all put together in one big game. This included 12 new playable characters from Ace Attorney, Dead Rising, Guardians of the Galaxy, and more, alongside cosmetic changes like redrawn endings for the arcade mode. The gameplay was also tweaked, balancing out some of the characters and elements better from Marvel vs Capcom 3, though the likes of Phoenix and X-Factor remained causes for concern. Nonetheless, this game is still widely played today and still receives new content via the fan community's mods on the PC port. Number 1. Marvel vs Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes. The reasons fans still go crazy for this series is due to Marvel vs Capcom 2. It introduced 3-on-3 combat, the snapback mechanic that knocked one opposing team member out in favor for another, selectable assist attacks, and a gigantic 53 character roster that combined everyone from all the prior Marvel games with a few new additions. Capcom's deal with Marvel was due to run out in the year 2000, so they threw everyone into whatever they could piece together to complete their end of the deal. It's why the stages and jazzy soundtrack feel a little bit out of place, but even so, it still produced one of the most fun and influential Marvel vs Capcom games of all time. And so there you pretty much have it. Those were our top 10 best Marvel vs Capcom games of all time. So what did you think of this list? Do you agree with our top 10? Or perhaps that you feel that there was a Marvel vs Capcom game that wasn't on this list that should have been included? If so, do let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. And of course, not forgetting that if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10s, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. I'll also leave some more top 10s at the end of this video if you would like to check those out. Thanks very much for watching guys, and I will see you all next time.